Anywhere in the realm of 1953 to 1961, Eisenhower supposedly had a meeting with gray aliens and potentially others. And in that meeting, apparently a treaty or deal was made with the aliens. And part of that deal was the abduction of humans in the United States for genetic material. A lot of lore around that. We've remote viewed that. That kind of stuff did happen.
But what did this deal involve? Is it still going on today? And will we ever hear the truth if so? Disclosure is seemingly upon us with both Obama and President Trump acknowledging the existence of aliens. But with it comes deeper mysteries. People are in two camps. Either, yes, we'll finally learn things of real significance from good people fed up with all the secrecy, or no, the public will just be thrown a few bones, shown some old documents or grainy footage to placate us like children. Intel on the UFO and UAP topic is one of the highest secrecy classification there is. It's been a 100-year-long cover-up. So when certain things do finally come out during disclosure, consider what other UFO and UAP information might still be kept from you that's supposed to remain hidden for reasons of national security. In this episode of Metaphysical, we won't ignore the deeper implications or lie to you. We think you can handle the truth. So let's dive into credible whistleblower accounts, abduction experiences, and what the aliens' motivations really are. Have visitors from other worlds been in contact with the government for a long time? Join me, investigative researcher Rob Counts, and remote viewer John Vivanco for a metaphysical show that's out of this world.
Some of my friends who are like deep in the that I've known for a very long time in remote viewing believe that. Now, I've never seen this, but they believe that, and they've seen it in their own data, that the part of the deal, the treaty that was made, had to do with the government coming clean on it before a certain point in time. And right now, we're at that point in time where the government has to come clean on it. And they're supposed to come clean on it before a geophysical event happens on the planet. And they have not done it, and they were supposed to have done it a while ago. They have not done it because there is infighting on keeping technology secret. Not about freaking the people out, because I think people can ultimately handle it, but it literally has to do with these people in the positions of power and the military industrial complex wanting to keep tight lid on the secrecy surrounding the technology because it benefits them to a huge, huge degree. So I think that that could be a reason why this is happening, why people are seeing this phenomena occur more and more, and that the government is fighting with itself to release this stuff because that was part of the original treaty.
So that's interesting. I was not aware. I was aware of everything you said except the part about disclosure before a certain event takes place. So are you aware of the prophet Baba Vanga? She's a blind Bulgarian woman who predicted many, many things in the 20th century. Baba Vanga said that I believe that the first encounter humans would have, first meeting humans would have with an alien species would be November of 2026. If that's
Really?
true, and what you said is true, that your remote viewer friends also believe, that would mean that there would have to be some geophysical event between now and November of 2026 if there is to be a meeting with alien species then. But I've also noticed that no one's been able to predict that is a moving target constantly. And Baba Vanga, I don't think is 100% on everything. Like, she's gotten some things right, and I don't think everything is I don't think any prophet always nails every single thing, because the future is one of those. It's one of those very intangible things that changes constantly.
It's in a
Um,
state of probability. Yeah,
right, right, and
that's it.
yeah, and
That's
you
really the
could see
problem.
something. It could be totally true, but then the way that events unfold just created a totally different future. Um, yeah, that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, but along with what you said, and along with the deal that Eisenhower allegedly had, which you've remote viewed, and that is true. I was researching a whistleblower recently that I wanted to bring up, that I think is really interesting, and I think it adds to the conversation I think um, in a really fascinating way. His name is Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch. Now, Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch is a very, very important whistleblower, I believe. Ross Coulthart has interviewed him a number of times. Uh, Ross Coulthart, if you don't know who he is very active on News Nation in interviewing um, whistleblowers that have come forward to reveal encounters with UAPs, UFOs, um, and everything of that nature. So, Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch, he's a former Pershing II nuclear missile battery commander. He was a Delta Force commander. He's got a master's in math and computer science, and a second master's and a doctorate in cognitive psychology. He's also a consultant for the White House Office of Science, NASA, and other agencies, and has a really, really interesting background. Now, what you have to understand, if somebody's being given the keys to nukes, things that can start World War III, guys like that have to be of sound mind. They're psychologically very stable human beings. Otherwise, they're not going to be in charge of nukes. They're just not. They're very careful with those things. The Army is very careful with those things. He's come forward and talked about his own experiences. Now, he claimed that when he was in his positions within the military, that no one really ever talked about it, but that when he gets all of the special forces guys together and they're all talking in front of the fire, because they do this all the time, they'll talk about things that and experiences that they've had, which are very interesting to this conversation. He himself has had a number of personal experiences, starting when he was very young, of large-eyed beings looking through his window that terrified him. And going into his adult life, he's had a bunch of instances of missing time, where he's gone on a mountain bike ride, and it was during the day, and he wakes up in a field, and it's the middle of the night. He finds his way to a gas station. A police officer shows up. His wife had put in a missing persons report. He had to get driven back home. He was totally parched. Like it was like his whole body was cold when he woke up, like down to the bones. He had to drink an enormous amount of water. And when he sees certain images, like he even talked about, he talked about a really interesting experience he had, where he was walking through Barnes and Noble. He and his daughter were late. They were going to meet his wife and his other daughter. And as he's walking through Barnes and Noble, he looks over on the shelf and he sees Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. And I don't know if you remember the cover of this book, but it's the
Burned into
classic.
my memory.
Yeah, it's a classic gray alien face, the big eyes, skinny, huge head, skinny face. Um, and he totally went into paralysis when he saw it, and all of the hair on the back of his neck, his whole body went into sort of paralysis for almost 5 minutes straight. his daughter was like out the door of Barnes and Noble, had to come back in and kind of knock some sense into him to get him to go meet his family. And you have to understand, like this is a guy that has studied psychology. So when he sees his body going through this is like it's cognitive, it's evidence that his body is holding on to some type of post-traumatic stress disorder where potentially the memories are being erased after something happens, but his body knows.
Yep. I had the same thing happen to me when I saw that book cover, and it's crazy what you just said here because I had the same similar, not the same, similar thing happened to me when I very first saw that book cover because when I was a kid, same thing that you just said about this guy, the beings with big eyes would look at me through the window and then I would get paralyzed by them. And then I would start to lift off my bed and I would black out. And then I would find myself outside. So this happened to me repeatedly when I was a kid. I didn't know what it was. And then later on in life, when I saw that freaking book with that freaking face on it, I had an absolute, complete, utter meltdown. I didn't know anything about aliens. I had no clue about that stuff. All I knew is that that thing did it to me when I was a kid, and my body just flipped the f out. So that's crazy that you just said that about what happened to him.
I had no idea you had that experience. Before I told him the story, I had no idea you had that experience. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
So, um, Ross Coulthart in this interview with him, he kind of asked him like, well, what is it? Why is the government keeping this from people? Why do you? And his take on it was because he's been a military man his entire life. Is that there's a lot of really great people in the military that he's met, and that these are normal, like, good people that are sort of like when you have a fireman or somebody who's willing to sacrifice themselves for the betterment of others. He really respects people in the military and the army. He thinks that it is the abductee part of this entire thing that is the linchpin for why the government will not release information on UAPs and UFOs. And how he explained it, and this was really interesting to me, is that he had himself had missing time, and he's a big guy in the military. You have a very important individual who's having missing time and being affected by this phenomena, and the government cannot do anything to protect an individual from this, which would mean that the technology that these alien beings are using is so advanced that it creates a sort of moral impasse for the government in revealing a lot of this stuff. Because if they can't protect an important person like that, if you can't protect children, like you just said, like you would wake up outside not knowing where you were, then how do you come clean about these types of things? Now,
and knowing that that was part of the deal that you made with them to begin with.
so you're hitting on it exactly, which is that what was the deal Eisenhower made, and why are there so many missing people across the United States?
Well, that's a separate thing. Then it's not it's not 100% okay. So the deal that Eisenhower made was different than the sub deals these black ops groups made, because there's not just one
Layers.
group,
Yeah,
right?
there's layers.
Not just one group. So the people who disappear fall into this very dark side. That wasn't the side that necessarily that Eisenhower originally connected with. But marijuana leads to heroin. I mean, you get one whiff of humans and then you want more humans, I mean, that's probably what it is. But original intention from what we saw was that the deal with the first deal had to do with the abduct okay, our species is dying kind of idea. We need genetic material, and so can we get genetic the deal is that we'll take genetic material from the population, and then we'll give you in exchange some technology, and they're basically just pulling from a junkyard on their planet. And so it's like we'll make the trade, and then at that point they started doing it. The government and military wanted lists of people they were doing. This is why you also get the MyLab reports of people waking up during some of these and finding that they're actually military people there, because they would follow and track who they were taking, and then they're like, well, why are they taking them over and over again? Let's see if we can mimic them and find out what's going on here with that person, right? So you get that like overlap starts to occur. um, and then they stopped basically giving them information on who they were taking and abducting, right? um, so that was at least that part of part of the deal that Eisenhower had made. Maybe there's more to it. I don't know, but I know that we've seen that with remote viewing. And from what I've seen, most of that is on the genetic side has ended. Most of that on the genetic side has ended. There might be outliers to that, but most of it has ended. And then when you get into the things like the Dulce firefight idea, that's something else. That's something a little bit different.
Uh, Tell everybody at home what the Dulce firefight is if they haven't watched our episode on it.
Yeah, the Dulce firefight is that absolutely insane lore surrounding a firefight with, I think, Delta forces, U.S. military, and reptilians in an underground base in Dulce, New Mexico, where the reptilians were basically kidnapping people, or had people, or were working with Black Project Group to bring people in, and the Black Project Group didn't like it, because they were doing really heinous experiments on humans down there and keeping them caged. And then they decided to like destroy the base and break out the people.
Good overview. And we have an entire episode where we reveal exactly what happened, the different players involved, and the psychological operations around the Dulce firefight. So if you're interested in that, definitely go check that out. Yeah, and I think you pointed out something really interesting, because Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch he's written some books, and I haven't gotten to read any of them yet, but he's written some books, and one of the books that he's coming out with soon, I guess, he was he because he's really pro disclosure, that the government needs to come clean on what it can come clean on, right? Um, but one of the things that he was saying is that there should be some forgiveness for the alien species that are abducting humans and doing experiments. And his reasoning was really interesting, because I don't think it takes everything into consideration, but from his standpoint is that he has been abducted many times. He's even had um, hypnosis done to kind of remember many of the things that have happened, and I'll go into one of those stories in a moment. But that every single time he's been brought back, and he's now, if you think about it, the way he described it is, if you have a dog or a cat, you have to bring the dog or the cat into the vet to get treatment, and the dog or the cat will be terrified when they're going in to get treatment, but you know that it's for their own good. And and so but the dog or the cat is never going to come to the conclusion of why that it was good that you brought them there. They're just going to be totally terrified and freaked out by the entire thing, right? He likened the experiments that aliens are doing on humans to this idea of when you're bringing in a dog or a cat. Now, of course, it doesn't take all cases into consideration, as I said. Um, but he shared an experience that I thought was really interesting, where on one of these hypnotic regression sessions, um, he remembered a mantis being leaning down over him. Now, this is different than the gray aliens he saw when he was a kid, too, right? So he's being looked at by different species, if this is true. And he called it a male mantis creature, was bending over him, and it was upset with him. And it was kind of like yelling at him or talking really sternly. And it was like, why are you freaking out? Stop freaking out. this doesn't mean anything. And the mantis being went on to explain that your body is just a machine that your soul is inside of right now, and you're going to have many other machines that you use. Don't worry about this particular one. Just let us do what we need to do so we can get out of here, which is a kind of a weird thing to communicate. But it also kind of reveals that these advanced, or at least this advanced alien species, views the consciousness and the soul as being um the ultimate life form that is behind a human body, and that human beings are so limited in how we think about our bodies that we're constantly looking at this is us, and we can't get past it. And
Right.
it went so far as to, it said, look, I'm going to show you. And he said that the mantis being opened its mouth, which is, the crazy, disgusting, predator like mouth, and it started taking bites out of his face and spitting it out. And he was watching all of this blood come out of him. And the mantis being was like, see, it doesn't even matter. Like, showing him, like, this is just flesh and that's not your consciousness. Like, you're fine. And then Ross Coulthart even asked him, he was like, well, did that really happen where it was taking bites out of your face, and did they fix it? And he was like, no, I think that the being was projecting those visions into his head to show him how much worse this could get, and that they were just doing some cursory experiments on him for whatever reason.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, this is a common thing. You've heard this from other people as well, not just him. That they consider us containers, vessels, containers.
Use that word. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Because the body is just the machine basically. Um, and it is kind of interesting how, I mean, they really, like, a lot of them are going after genetic material too when they're collecting genetic material, finding unique traits and stuff in order to understand their own base and to create new bases of life, which is not us when you get right down to it. It's just part of this ongoing physical biological machine expansion. So yeah, I guess, sure, why not help? Why not be their pets and help them out? You know, I don't know. I mean, i- it is an interesting perspective because on the abduction side, the abduction scenario, there is a tendency to be so traumatized by it. There is trauma around it because the physical body's being m- messed with in a way where you can't even control whether you want it or not. So there does seem to be some boundary issues, legit or not. There are boundary issues from my perspective on that front. There is that whole idea as well where people say that, well, you gave subconscious or higher self permission for it to happen. I don't know if that is a just a ploy, or just to go, "Oh, I did? Alright, then it's okay." You just
Right.
gave permission when you did that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and human beings aren't animals, right? Like, you should be given
I mean, we
permission
are
before.
animals, but we're
No, we're
mammals.
not. We're
W
not. We're
well, our
human.
body is a mammal. I mean,
Sure, but that's going down this whole science-based evolutionary thing. Like, human beings have the capacity to evolve spiritually in a way that other beings simply do not, right?
yeah,
Because and that is, I think, the sort of moral argument here is, when you yes, maybe human beings don't really know a lot, or we don't know what we have, or how this relationship between our spirit and our body works because of our science-based thinking. But it is true. Like, if you're are you going to flat out give one of these alien races permission to just go and experiment on your body? And Probably
It
not.
depends on the approach. It depends on the approach. Look, part of the problem is that the government has never come clean to people in general on this phenomena. So there's no understanding, right? There's no understanding. There's only fear surrounding it. If there's a clear definition on why this is happening and why it's necessary and why it's needed in order to respect a person's own true human-based free will, then that's a different story. And I honestly think it needs to go down that path, because all aspects of consciousness need to be in line with what's happening. Not one aspect is freaking out against it because it's got no knowledge or information, and the other aspect is semi okay with it. I don't think that's the right path. I really don't. I think that is breaking. I think that's breaking something that is important not to break. Ultimately,
Well,
that's what I.
what you're saying is the government gave them permission to experiment on your body.
As if the government owns us. So here's the other thing. Like there's something not right going on here. What's the attitude? So even they would obviously perceive the government as owning the people, as opposed to the government is by the people, right? So if that's their perspective, then something is clearly wrong here, because you can't do that. You can't.
But that's what we tell ourselves too. I mean, we elect these officials, and then these officials are to govern over us. They're supposed to be governing on our behalf, but we don't know what conversations and things are going on behind the scenes, not really.
Well, that's the bubble that's the psychological bubble that we live in, especially in a society like ours in the United States, where people just trust that people trust within the framework, have trust within the framework that exists around them, that has been supposedly created. It's been created by us and changed over time by us for the benefit of us, because it's us that's doing it. When it's not, it's a framework to contain and control, and the people who have created the framework to contain and control actually live outside of the framework. And you begin to see this a lot of, some people do, some people don't see this. They see it more now, but I saw it very early on in my life, when I realized that by being harassed, death threats by intelligence agencies, and followed because remote viewing was declassified and given to the public, and now I'm successful with it, and you're going to come after me and break the law, and and screw with me to get me to stop doing this, even though it's declassified. I'm successful with it. So at that point, I began to understand that the framework that we exist within, of rules and laws, is a framework that is only constructed to contain us, and to keep and on the outside of that, as you can see now, especially when it comes to the Epstein files, people live on the outside of that. And the ones that actually create this container live on the outside of that. This is just for us. It's just for us. So in that context, I would understand that, well, of course, the aliens would go to them because they contain and control us. We're the cattle, not just for them, but for the humans that created the structure. Once you begin to see that that structure is a containment and control structure, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying, by the way. I'm just bringing things up for the purposes of the conversation.
No,
Um
I know. Well, it
and
sets me off on a different path, of course.
it's totally understandable, right? Especially with like your life experiences and all of that stuff. Another thing that I think is really weird when you start thinking about it is 99% of the people that have abduction stories or that have missing time stories have missing memories. So something actively is going on to erase the memories of the people that are being experimented on, which, if you think about it, like, I don't agree at all that the experiments are happening. But then it is also kind of benevolent that they would erase the memories so that you don't know or you can't remember. But what's weird then is you still have your body is recalling things too, right? It's like, what? Why erase the memories? I mean, is it just
They
to
can't
keep it
erase the
under?
memories.
You
They
can't
can't erase.
entirely.
No, 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 because the memories exist on the surface level, conscious thinking mind surface level. They exist as this nagging feeling that
Right.
comes up every once in a while, or as a reminder of something of like, wait, what was that thing? Something weird. It's that kind of a feeling.
Yeah, and
And then you go under hypnosis and then it starts to be revealed. So it exists somewhere in the subconscious. They can only get rid of it on the surface.
yeah, and Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch, he brought up that he thought that it was benevolent that the memories got erased. But then I wonder if it's just a part of the deal. Like whatever deals were made, this
Right.
has to be kept under wraps to the extent where the surface memories in your brain are being completely wiped out, um, so that they can keep the ruse going and keep the experiments going, which isn't benevolent at all. So it's kind of I like hearing different people's perspectives on this, but it's just it's so strange. I mean, all of this is so strange. Um, and before we kind of end here, I just wanted to ask you, what do you think will be revealed when Trump and Pete Hegseth, who's the head of the Department of War, actually come forward and start releasing information about this? What do you think is going to be revealed, and what do you think is not going to be revealed?
Well, I think it's going to be disappointing. I think it will be disappointing to a lot of people. Like if you're talking about just a straight up poly market bet, you know, like which is literally just a binary on yes, aliens are real, no, they're not. I think there's probably going to be some weird hedging, and it's not going to be the full statement of aliens are real. I honestly don't think it's going to be that. Like if you're, but I don't know. I mean, I'm speculating, and I I guess I've seen this happen quite a bit as well in the past, where people are like, Trump has said things too that don't come to fruition, but he still tries his best to do it. But sometimes he'll push something really far and then pull back on it and kind of disappear off to the edge with it because he's gotten probably a ton of pushback from internally when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I, based off of my experience, that you shouldn't probably hold out that he's going to say aliens are here on the planet. I don't think it will go down that path, but my glass is half empty, right? So I'm coming from that perspective, you know. I'm just coming from that perspective. Not psychically, no psychic information on that, my own opinion.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be disappointing. I also would encourage those that look at the information that is disclosed very carefully. When we look at what David Grush came forward with and all of his discussions that he had in his committee hearings, he was very careful in the terminology that he would use. He never talked about aliens. I was actually quite shocked Trump used the word aliens in his Truth Social post because, generally speaking, government folks don't use that term very much. They will use a term like non-human intelligence or non-human biologics. And so when David Grush was being asked questions whether or not the bodies that were found on these craft were alien, his response would always be they were non-human biologics, non-human biologics. And that term kind of throws people off. It lessens the blow a little bit. You don't call them aliens. You're talking, it's almost like, well, we don't really understand what it was, but it was non-human biologics. Dude, non-human biologics is an alien. full on. That's a non-human entity. It's not an animal because you would have called it an animal. It's a it's non-human biologics, and it's an alien. So when they release this information, when you look and read between the lines, you're going to find more than if you just listen to the words on the surface. You kind of have
Right.
to think about what they're saying. I think, and I had a tweet about this the other day. Once Trump had his Truth Social post and everything, I think that they're going to reveal more footage that is like the Tic Tac UFO. I think they may reveal things that or instances where naval officers have encountered aliens coming up from the water, or sorry, not aliens, or craft coming up from the water, technology coming up from the water that not necessarily are they traveling from light years away, but they are here somewhere. These things might come into play, but then I think what is will be omitted almost definitely is going to be, oh, we any of the alien interrogation events that have occurred that you and your team have remote viewed, that we've confirmed. um Alien encounters are not going to be included in that. Discussions or any interactions with aliens will not be included. And I also don't think any of the technology that we have that has revolved around or that has come from reverse engineering these craft, I don't think any of that is going to be a part of the discussion. And that's where all the interesting stuff is. That's
Yep.
actually where people's personal experiences, the technologies, and how all of this works. That's where the whistleblowers that have come forward are infinitely more interesting, I think, um, than any of the stuff that the government will or would ever declassify.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, again, we've got the Rocket City in Alabama, which is actually now UFO City because of the amount of anti-gravity research that's going on around there. And you have every government in the world setting up shop around there with spies in order to get whatever's going on there. Any country that is doing their own research like this as well is doing this. Every other country is in their country doing the same thing. So everybody freaking knows that there's this alien technology that has been gotten. It's literally time to just tell people that aliens are freaking here. That's it.
100% agree with you. I would love to encourage the government to just come clean on all of this stuff and just lay it all out. Lay it all out. Let us know. We can take it. But I don't think that's going to happen. Not entirely. Yeah. Okay. If you're interested in this conversation, John and I are going to have a metaphysical after hours that is going to be on themetaphysical.tv. If you want to hear the rest of this bonus content, you can subscribe to the Mystery Junkie tier or higher on themetaphysical.tv. That will get you access to exclusive metaphysical episodes, director cuts, and topics you won't see anywhere else. Plus, your subscription to the metaphysical.tv also gets you about 1,000 more episodes on mysteries, ancient civilizations, cryptids, UFOs, and other awesome topics. We hope you guys enjoyed this show. We would love to know what you think about this entire conversation. What are they going to disclose? What are they not going to disclose? What do you think about Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch and any of the other whistleblowers that we haven't brought up here? Definitely comment. Like this video if you could. Subscribe to us. We'd love to keep hanging out with you guys and continuing our efforts on Metaphysical to reveal the mysteries of the world. We love you guys, all of you guys who are supporting us already. We love you guys. Thanks so much. And we hope you guys thought this episode was out of this world.